Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to our VIDA podcast, where we're going to help educate military veterans and their spouses on opportunities in Web3. Our plan is to host a series of industry leaders, many of whom are veterans or spouses themselves, so we can learn about their journey down the crypto rabbit hole while understanding opportunities for transitioning veterans into space. My name is Chris Perkins. I'm a combat Marine veteran who spent 15 years on Wall Street before transitioning into crypto myself. And before we begin, I wanted to thank our sponsor, Luca, who have dedicated their time and resources to make this podcast possible. And I'm very excited. For our fourth episode, we'll be speaking with Yuri Anosov, digital asset trader and head of brokerage and Air Force veteran at Anchorage. Welcome, Yuri.
Yeah, glad to be here.
Awesome, man. So to get started, would love to hear about your background. Where did you grow up?
Yeah, I was born in Moscow, Russia, and I moved to the United States right around the time that the Soviet Union collapsed, and ended up settling in Denver, Colorado. So spent basically middle school, high school, college, and as well as my military service in Colorado.
Awesome. And I imagine it can't be easy for you with current events. Any thoughts you want to share there?
Yeah, it's a tough situation we're in, both on obviously the Russian and the Ukrainian side. I think obviously the Ukrainian side is more of the victim here, but the average citizen in Russia, including some of my family members, are also experiencing hardship as well.
Yeah, I mean it's such a human cost, and it's something that my hearts go out to all those impacted. Why did you join the military, and can you tell us a little bit about your experience there?
Yeah, sure. The military journey started early for me. All of the male family members on both sides of my mom and my dad's ancestry have been in the military as long as records have been kept. And when I was in middle school, I joined something called Civil Air Patrol. It's basically a volunteer organization that's a subset of the Air Force. That does like a cadet program, a search and rescue program. And I was in that all through middle school and high school and got to the rank of cadet lieutenant colonel, basically the second highest rank. And the entire time I was basically saying, okay, when I graduate high school, I really want to go to the Air Force, go to the military. And I decided to enlist in the Air Force right when I graduated high school. It made a little bit more sense for me than to go straight to college at that time. So that is the genesis of it.
Were there any defining moments during your service that impacted you or shaped your life going forward?
Yeah, honestly, I would say that it was the basic training in the tech school more than anything. Never in my life have I ever participated in anything that's structured, where you really have to be disciplined and work as part of a large team. So it was a completely different way to live life, even though it was only 6 weeks for basic and obviously 3 more months for the tech school. But yeah, and then I've never really been in an environment like that before, and I think it's literally made me the person I was, in my 20s and 30s. So.
Awesome. And what rank did you get out of? Was it a staff sergeant?
By the time I left the Air Force, I was staff sergeant. Correct. Awesome.
So tell us about your transition.
Yeah, look, I mean, so I was active duty in the Air Force, Air National Guard, I guess, to be exactly correct. I was in the security forces unit. I was working night shifts, and I decided that after about a year of that, I was like, okay, I actually need to go to college, right? I can't just spend my whole time just kind of, guarding the gates or driving a cop car around. I need to actually, start getting my degree. So I did it both in tandem. So I was still in the Air Force while going full time to college. I'd do my night shift, from 6 p.m. till 6 in the morning, and then drive to school and, try to stay awake through all my classes. But I ended up graduating in time. And by the time I graduated, I had about a year and a half left in the service before my 6 years were up. And I was a finance major, and I ended up interviewing with all sorts of finance firms, and I finally got this Goldman Sachs offer, which was it was a good offer, something I couldn't really pass up. So I talked with my commanders, and they decided that what I could do is go there full time, and then just basically be a weekend warrior, just do 1 weekend a month, 2 weeks a year for the rest of my time. So. The transition was tough. Being in the military is a little bit different than being a professional. I think being an analyst, like a junior analyst at Goldman, was made easier because of my military time. It's like when you work, let's say like 15 hours a day, like at a busy day at Goldman, a lot of people kind of complain about that, and it's tough, obviously. But after working a 15-hour shift where you're trying to stay warm and you're outside and you have like nothing intellectually stimulating about it, actually the Goldman stuff's pretty easy. So I think the military actually really helped prepare for the analyst days.
Yeah, so you're doing all that while you're going to school as well. It's just amazing to me how people are able to juggle both. And then you go into Goldman, where you're also serving in the reserves. Do you want to tell us anything about your experience at Goldman?
Yeah, Goldman was always, I felt, like a meritocracy. I joined, when I joined, I also worked night shifts at Goldman as my first job. I would come into the office around 10 p.m. and probably work till about 8 in the morning because Goldman at the time was expanding their PWM business in Asia and the Middle East. And the operational portion of that business was in Salt Lake City. And this is before they had a really big operation over in Bangalore, which now supports obviously everything during the daytime. But I think actually that helped me get in a little bit because I remember in the interviews they asked me, well, do you have any experience, working at night? I said, well, yeah, actually I do. I've been working night shifts in the military for the last 3 years. So I think like that helped me get in there. That's for sure.
Got it. And just for the listeners, PWM, is that private wealth management?
Correct. Yes. Thank you. Yes.
Okay. So you're going along. It sounds like things are going great at Goldman, but then eventually you pivoted into crypto. How did you get involved in crypto?
Yeah. So at this time, and by the way, I was at Goldman actually technically twice. So I spent 5 years working in the operations division. And towards the end of that, I was getting a little, burnt out. After doing all the analyst and associate years, and I decided to take a break. And what that meant, back in the early 2010s, is you go do your MBA. So I did the MBA. I went to INSEAD, in France and Singapore. And then after that, I felt that, okay, I really want to try the front office stuff. I really want to be a trader. So I joined Goldman back up, but in the fixed income division in the asset management unit, and eventually became a portfolio manager. Now, from the portfolio management seat, you see just about everything. So obviously there is the markets aspect of it. And, I was working in a money markets team. So you really see a lot of like what's going on with money flows. How do zero rates impact, the entire system? What that means for what money printing means for the rest of the system. And I started, looking at Bitcoin a little bit from the inflation hedge point of view. But then my operational kind of side of the brain kicked in, and I was thinking, all right, well, if you like make an equity trade, it takes 3 days to settle. It has to go through, your back office and the custodian, and then the transfer agent, and DTC, and then right back up to your counterparty side with the same unit. So basically, like 7 to 8 different entities have to touch your one equity trade. And then when I sent the Bitcoin, from one address to another, it was there within 10 minutes. There was really nothing operational. Everything was done, in a decentralized manner. And I was like, okay, well, not only is this thing, finite and great from the macro perspective, but operationally, this is a game changer. Like, Wall Street, to this day, runs in the SWIFT system, which is, 70s, 80s technology. And there's, if you look at any large bank, there's giant back office, just infrastructure in banks, custodians, et cetera, where the crypto systems can really just provide a lot of innovation to make everything more efficient, I think is the best way to put it. So just seeing this, I felt like, okay, I need to go work in this and really help build it out, because I think that's where the industry is really going to go, and the technological innovation around the industry, as far as its plumbing, I think is going to change.
Awesome. So you got into Bitcoin, and then how did you learn about this entire ecosystem? Yeah.
So obviously, after just buying Bitcoin and looking at that, you really just start going down the rabbit holes. And one of the first, Ethereum specifically, I listened to one of the, I guess, famous, if you're in the crypto space, interviews with Naval Ravikant interviewed Vitalik. This is, for those of you that may have seen it, this is the one where Vitalik kind of wears that purple shirt with all the spaceships on it. It's one of his more famous talks. And after kind of seeing that and figuring out what a smart contract was, I started reading, some of the kind of must reads if you're getting into the crypto industry, like Digital Gold and things like that, that kind of describes, what smart contracts can truly do. And I think that really got me super interested, at which point I was like, okay, well, where can I fit into the crypto industry, right? So I noticed that, a lot, the money market trading is all done kind of in Bloomberg chat and the phone, et cetera, right? Like, you call a broker for some treasuries, you can call 4 other brokers in half an hour and the original broker's price won't change, 90% of the days, right? Whereas crypto was trading more like equities and FX, where a lot of it's algorithmic. You have to watch slippage, you have to look at order books, things like that. So I just started learning how to, apply those types of skills, did some basic coding, Python modules, on Udemy and things like that. And then decided that I would just apply to different crypto companies, for trader roles.
Got it. And it sounds like you landed at Anchorage. Can you tell us a little bit about Anchorage and what it does?
Yeah, would be very happy to do that. But before I go into Anchorage, I would say that the first job I got in crypto was actually with Galois Capital, which is a smaller fund. I was one of the first 5 employees there. After the co-founders, obviously, I think the next 3 people, we all came in on the same day. And it was Galois is a algorithmic market making company that focuses purely on crypto. So I spent a year and a half there, and that's really where I learned about the crypto ecosystem, all the players in the industry, and really how everything kind of works. And then after that is when, after a year and a half at Galois, is when I went to Anchorage. And Anchorage, what makes it unique is we are a native custody company. Our co-founders come from Square. They've experience in Docker, and they create, I don't know, I'm pretty sure everybody at one point or another used a Square, card reader that attaches to your phone when paying for something at a vendor. And our co-founders of Anchorage, Nathan and Diogo, actually were on the security team that designed that technology and are on the patent for that. So because of their security background, they created Anchorage, which was originally a custody platform. Now, right around the time where this company was about 25, 30 people big, they asked me if I wanted to help them build the finance side of the house, well, meaning a trading platform. So when there really wasn't one in place, because the custody clients, they wanted to be able to trade within the security and the insurance coverage of Anchorage without necessarily moving their assets to a third party. So I came in to build out the trading platform, which is what I've been doing for the last 2.5 years, still do to this day.
Great. So can you talk a little bit about what a typical day is for a digital asset trader?
Yeah. The first thing I think to note is, the business is 24/7. There's no in the traditional markets, there's obviously a lot of gap risk, meaning if something closes at 4 p.m. On a Thursday, then at 9 a.m. On Friday, you can, if something happens between then while the markets are closed, there's gapping, right? The prices can change. While, Bitcoin and the rest of crypto trades 24/7. So the first thing a crypto trader needs to do in his day-to-day is figure out, all right, well, how am I going to cover this 24/7 market when the customers can trade, anything? Should I hire a 24/7 staff and, make sure I can talk to customers and do all their trades, through maybe a chat room? Okay, that's maybe part of it, but you also have to build out an infrastructure to make sure that clients can trade via an API, via GUI, 24/7. So, as a crypto trader, your day-to-day is really watching client flows, making sure that all the orders go in fine, the clients don't get rejected a lot, that you have enough liquidity to handle, the rapidly growing client base. So you're really not just a trader, but you're also somebody that's making sure that the system is always up and running and your clients can trade at will, or at least on the sell side, where I work in a brokerage, that's how it works.
Got it. So crypto is moving really, really, really fast, as you mentioned. It's a 24/7 market. We're seeing innovation happening and popping up all the time. What advice would you give to transitioning veterans on how to get up to speed on the industry? What's the best way to develop expertise?
Yeah, it's a tough question because I think like every 4 months you can kind of answer it a little bit differently, right? Just for some background for the folks that are listening to that haven't been in crypto, 2 years ago it was all about Bitcoin, then it was all about smart contracts, then it was all about DeFi, then it's all about NFTs, and who knows what it's going to be about, in 4 months, 6 months from now. So yeah, it's rapidly changing. Now, in order to succeed in this ecosystem, I think you need to absolutely master the basics, which means like mastering Bitcoin. And I don't mean like, all right, well, okay, Bitcoin is a finite supply, like that's anti-inflationary, whatever, right? Like that's pretty basic. What I mean is understanding how Bitcoin works. Like when I press send, if I send 10 Bitcoin to Chris and I press the send button and you give me your address, like how does it actually get there? Like what happens in the actual tech? Like, what is the Byzantine general's problem? Like, what are all these things that Bitcoin actually solve? Like, how does it work in a decentralized manner? These things, I'm not I was a finance major in college. I'm not a computer science guy. I'm not a mathematician, but I was able to learn these things. And I think anybody with enough intellectual curiosity can really dig in and understand Bitcoin. Now, after you understand Bitcoin, I think everything opens up. When you start reading about, maybe some of the Ethereum, some of the other DeFi protocols, because you understand how Bitcoin works, the other stuff comes a little bit more naturally to you. Like, for example, if you don't understand Bitcoin and you start reading about, how the Phantom protocol works, you're not going to understand anything, unless maybe you have a master's of computer science or something like that. But Bitcoin, I think, is really where everybody needs to start. And I think like the more and more you read and learn about Bitcoin, the side doors kind of open up naturally, and you're just going to start clicking around, and then next thing you know, you actually have a pretty good feel for the space. But the main thing is, I guess, if I was to summarize all of it, just always read. Like set 2 hours. Like I still to this day, 2 hours a day. I always just block off my calendar and I just go and read some stuff that I've been kind of saving throughout the day, just about whatever is interesting to me that day. So if you don't keep up with the reading, you're going to be in trouble.
Amazing advice. So it sounds like read the white papers especially is important. Would you agree?
Sometimes. I would say white papers can go into two categories, right? You can have a white papers like the Bitcoin white paper, for example, which is like amazing, succinct, can be read by a person of I would say average intelligence. And then there's white papers where, some protocol was trying to be like maybe like the 10th competitor in their space. And they'll write like a 90-page thing with, you can write, 1 times 2 equals 2 in a 2-page formula if you really wanted to. You can make it that complicated. And I feel like some of these white papers are in fact that, where like it's almost impossible for even like myself to still understand it. It's good to understand like which white paper is a good one, which white paper is fluff. But a lot of these protocols that are launching nowadays, like for example, if you go to the FTX website and you want to figure out how one of their perp swaps works, they have an incredible explanation of it with some examples of how the cash flows move around and exactly how a contract might work, right? So some of the websites from centralized exchanges as well as DeFi protocols actually have really good explanations there. The white papers sometimes get a little bit too much into the weeds, I feel sometimes.
That's terrific advice. And I also want to underscore one thing that you mentioned. You talked about how this industry changes so fast. I think it's also important for people to remember that this industry is so young, right? Bitcoin came out around 2008 out of the crisis. Ethereum, 2014, 2015. Most of the new projects and protocols we deal with are less than 5 years old. I mean, how long have NFTs been around? Really, they've came on the scene the last couple of years. So it's such an exciting open space for transitioning veterans. Would you agree?
Yeah, I mean, look, if you're a transitioning veteran and you have an ounce of intellectual curiosity about, how to make the world less dependent on, centralized entities like central banks and governments, this is a perfect place for you to be. I mean, there's so much innovation in the space that if you're somebody that, is into self-learning, if you're somebody that, logs onto Udemy and to try to, pays $50 to learn something new, you're going to absolutely love working in the crypto space.
So there's a lot of folks who think that you need to be a computer scientist to be successful in the space. You mentioned a couple of times you're a finance guy. What skill sets do you think are most in demand within Web3, the crypto industry today?
Yeah. So look, obviously, the developers are probably the most important in the space at the moment, especially when it comes to Web3 and DeFi exactly. Just because at the end of the day, it is all about the code and how to, develop some of these things, right? But for example, let's take a step back from just DeFi and Web3, right? Let's look at, for example, a company like Anchorage. Well, here we hire, for example, a lot of folks in compliance because the regulatory, landscape right now is very uncertain, and there's just a lot of work to do around it. I sometimes tell engineers that I think it's very difficult to implement an asset or something like that. The engineering job is hard, but actually, I truly believe that the hardest job in crypto space is the crypto lawyer. Just because they are operating in a completely in darkness. It's like flying a C-17 through a thunderstorm. You can't really see anything. You're just kind of depending on what you know and the information that's being given to you. But to this day, a lot of the global regulators, they still don't have black and white kind of things for crypto, just because they want to make sure they get it right too, right? So they don't want to come out with something that is maybe undercooked or overcooked. So as somebody on the legal or a compliance side, there's just so much work to do in this space, just away from development, right? In addition, I think if you have good sales skills and understanding of finance and understanding of, for example, why does an equity settle T+3, just to kind of go back to something I already talked about? How can that be made better? Through just offering the type of services that maybe an Anchorage or one of our competitors can offer. Right? Understanding that and selling it and managing relationships of clients, that is an incredible opportunity for a lot of vets, I feel. Because, a lot of the clients, the companies like Anchorage have, for example, crypto is still pretty new to them. And somebody needs to do the translation work of, what some of the developers and the lawyers do to maybe make folks that have spent their entire career in the traditional finance industry, understand a little bit better, some of the in the weeds thing and how crypto can really help their companies. So really, there's a lot of different ways you can get into crypto without necessarily being a computer scientist or a developer.
It's a great answer, and I totally agree, Yuri. So as you look forward on the horizon, we're talking about how quickly Web3 is evolving in the crypto industry. What excites you? Are there particular verticals, things you're seeing out on the horizon that make you excited about the future of this space?
Yeah, I spend a lot of time just looking into the different things in DeFi. And for example, Nexus Mutual is a DeFi insurance protocol, NXM, for anybody that's interested in looking into this. There are very interesting new ways of looking at how insurance works, right? Everybody's really used to kind of a very traditional sense of insurance, but there's a lot of things in the DeFi space that decentralizes insurance, optimizes where the coverage is, who's providing the capital for the coverage, and things like that. I think the insurance kind of industry in general will be changed by some of these things like Nexus and maybe other protocols that will come up and about probably over the next 5 to 10 years, which is a gigantic industry. So something like that is important. Mortgages is another thing. I just bought my first house, a year ago. The mortgage process was one of the most painful things I've ever done. It was just, I think, a lot of my hair great because of the mortgage process. But there's a lot of things you can do in DeFi that makes the mortgage process a lot more simple. Using Bitcoin as collateral for all sorts of different things that you can do is also amazing. Bitcoin is one of the things, that's not very much talked about, is that Bitcoin is one of the greatest pieces of collateral a person can own. Look, these are, just the top 3 off the top of my head. I'm sure I can name more if I think about it harder. But insurance, mortgages, and just Bitcoin as collateral, I feel will really change a lot of the ways people operate in the financial sphere.
Yeah, zooming out a bit, it sounds like you're really talking about this intersection of TradFi and crypto together as you're looking at these traditional business lines that will perhaps optimize or be disrupted, frankly, by the tech.
Yeah, exactly. Anchorage has, ever since we got our bank charter, which, by the way, I failed to mention that Anchorage is the first federally chartered crypto native bank. So ever since we got that, we started getting all sorts of, inbound institutions that are interested in, all sorts of different things, right? And our job is really to, like you just said, Chris, to bridge that gap between TradFi and crypto finance, because there are so many solutions, in the crypto space that are developing, that could really help traditional businesses, be a lot more efficient.
Yeah, totally agree. So you talked a little bit about making sure that you do your due diligence, you do your homework, you read as you're trying to get into this space. Any other advice that you'd have for a veteran or spouse who's trying to transition into crypto?
Yeah, look, you'll note that the crypto folks, a lot of us kind of work around the clock, and there's all these like inside jokes that are like, right, well, investment banking analysts, like, they complain about their hours, but once you escape into crypto, you're working equally the same hours, and things like that, right? I think the military folks, whenever you're interviewing with the crypto space, like really, I would say point out the work ethic of the military and what you're required to do. I think a lot of the folks that have never been in the military, they don't really know like what is required of an airman, a sailor, or a soldier, or a Marine, and the amount of discipline and the kind of commitment it takes to be successful. I absolutely love working with military folks because A, they don't complain about things, and B, they're able to kind of, again, like really commit to work and build something that might require, quite a bit of their time. So play that up. That's you can't really put that on a resume, but make that shine in an interview, because sometimes I interview hundreds of people. I think I interviewed something like 15 people last week for various roles, but it's very difficult to tell like who's going to be somebody that like really digs in and takes this job like very seriously and makes it all that they could, because not only does that benefit the company, it also benefits the person. The more work you do in the space and the more dependable you are, the better reputation you build. And this is a small space. After 4 years, I feel like I know just about all my peers and everybody else. And you're going to be like that as well if you join the space. So really, like, drive that point home when you're interviewing at crypto companies. I think it'll go a long way.
Totally hear you on working hard, but I tell you what, a lot of times it doesn't feel like you're working, because it's like your job is also your hobby. It's what you like to do. And so if you weren't working at your day job, you'd be, studying the markets because it's so interesting. And that's what I've seen over and over again, where I tell some of my crew, hey guys, you need to take a vacation. And they're like, well, what would I do? This is what I do. I love it. So it's just, it's pretty fascinating.
Yeah, I'd echo that a little bit too. I took my first kind of 2-week vacation last year, and I made sure that, I went down to Tulum, Mexico, and I left all of my phones, besides obviously my personal phone, so I could check into the airport, and order my Uber. I left everything, at home. And it is kind of crazy. You're starting to, you kind of sit there on the beach and you're like, all right, well, I sat here for like, a day and a half. All right, I need to like read something, like what's going on in the space, like what's happening with prices, like what's going on, like, and it takes you like 5 days to actually like decouple from it, because like you said, it is your hobby as well as your job. Like it is what you believe in. Obviously, look, I don't want to confuse folks and say like, all right, you're like crypto's amazing and every single day is going to be the most wonderful thing ever. There's definitely like tough days. There's a lot of like work that may seem manual or grueling at time. Like, but if you look back on your last year or your last 6 months, obviously it's nothing short of amazing of what you can achieve. But yeah, you're right. Like overlapping your job with your hobby, it's a gift and a curse. That's for sure.
Yeah, totally. I feel the same way. So you mentioned you're interviewing. You interviewed 50 people last week. What are you guys hiring for, and how should veterans apply?
Yeah, we are hiring just for about everything, right? We need a lot of compliance people. We need a lot of engineers. If anybody specifically out there has, trading system engineering experience, please feel free to reach out. That's one I feel like we're looking for a lot of folks in. Relationship management, sales, even marketing, I think is kind of a big one. You look at companies like FTX, who kind of came from a little bit of stealth to one of the biggest and most recognizable names in the industry over 2 years. That was all done through not just great, obviously, engineering and great products, but also through an amazing marketing campaign. So I think like a good marketing professional can do a lot of good work here in the industry. Folks that are political consultants also, I think, do well in the industry because there's a lot of things we can do to help, the regulators and the politicians understand exactly the benefits of what we can do. But yeah, look, Anchorage has probably, I think, around 30 to 40 positions open. Anchorage.com/careers is where you can read all about that and apply. Join the different industry groups too. Like, Chris, you can maybe share a little bit more about the veterans group here that, helps folks put, people in crypto. And, Anthony Pompliano runs, a crypto kind of a boot camp. We have several employees at Anchorage that came through there, which I think is actually an amazing training ground because both the guys that we have from the Pomp course have been pretty awesome. So yeah, there's a lot of different avenues to get into the space. But most importantly, I would say is don't just read about it. I know that was kind of my main advice, but also put $1,000 into some DeFi protocol. Screw around with it. Go press some buttons. Lose some money. Make some money. Really feel how the space works. I think, if you could explain to me in an interview that, okay, you don't just believe in the Bitcoin's like great for inflation or whatever and censorship. If you can tell me that you actually worked on something, like move something from wallet to wallet, that actually tells me that, you're actually interested in the space and you're trying different things. And this space is all about trying different things. So
it's a great point. That's the first thing I ask on an interview is tell me about your experience, What have you traded? Have you yield farmed? Do you own any NFTs? And I'm not saying that you need to, but it's interesting to know and benchmark people based on their passion because you want to make sure that they're passionate in it enough to know what they're getting into.
Yeah, exactly right. If you think about it this way, 15 years ago, maybe you and I were trying to get a job at a hedge fund or something like that. There's really no hands-on experience we could do except maybe trade your own PA and buy some ETFs, which isn't exactly the same, right? But in the crypto space, it's completely democratized. Like anybody with $500, $1,000 can go in and screw around in Phantom. I use Phantom all the time because it's 2-cent fees instead of the high Ethereum fees. So that's something where any person can really go into it and try to see what it's all about. So just because that's available to you, if you come into an interview and you're quote unquote passionate about the space, but you've never pressed a button in the DeFi protocol, okay, well maybe I'll question you a little bit about your conviction, right? So you can do a lot of work yourself.
Awesome. Yuri, how can people connect with you?
Yeah, I am at Anchorage Yuri on Telegram. I'm actually pretty good about answering my LinkedIn messages. I'm probably one of the few folks that actually reads all of them and replies to really good for folks that have actually something interesting to say. But that's probably the best way. I speak at a lot of the crypto conferences on behalf of the company pretty often. So usually you can stop me at a conference. Absolutely love talking to veterans. I think right now we have 4 of us here at Anchorage, but we definitely want to make that number bigger. So, and I mean that also just for the industry as well as Anchorage itself.
Awesome. Any last thoughts before we end the session?
Yeah, follow your passion in the industry. The finance industry is incredibly interesting. There's just so many different things you can do, and crypto is going to change the finance industry the way that Uber changed the taxi industry. I mean, it's inevitable. Obviously, it's finance and crypto is a little bit more complex than Ubers and taxis as far as the concept. But there's just so much work to do, and if you're looking to do something that 20 years from now, you're going to say, wow, I helped build something that made, access to finance for everybody in the world a lot better, and helped fix, some of the concentrated political systems, in a financial kind of, from a financial kind of background. I think this is the place for you to be.
Amazing insights today from our first Air Force veteran on the program. So you represented your service very, very well. Really appreciate your time. And also wanted to, again, thank our sponsor, Luca. They've been incredible. Thank you so much, everyone, and we'll see you next time.